You're listening to Skeptoid. I'm Brian Dunning from Skeptoid.com. The Naga Fireballs. During the full moon...
Richard, you have to download it.
River,
what for?
He has a podcast.
An extraordinary spectacle takes place.
That's not a podcast. That's a podcast. Hello and welcome to the Skeptic Zone, episode number 60 for the 11th of December 2009, with apologies to Brian Dunning and many thanks to Carrie Iwan for helping me out with that silly bit at the beginning of the show. On this week's show, we have an interview with a good friend of Australian skeptics. In fact, he was Skeptic of the Year in about 2002, I think, Dr. Paul Willis. Now, many people in Australia will know Dr. Paul Willis. He's one of the reporters on the Catalyst television program, the science program. We'll be chatting to Paul very soon. After that, we have Dr. Rachie reports, and she'll be chatting to Dr. Adam Hamlin from the Queensland Brain Institute, all about brain cells and diseases and all that sort of thing. And after that, we have the think tank. So sit back, have a nice glass of cognac, why not? And enjoy this episode of The Skeptic Zone. Dr. Paul Willis, certainly known to many Australian listeners, is a reporter on the ABC's flagship science program, Catalyst. Paul has a PhD in paleontology, and well, I could rabbit on about Paul for ages. He's also Skeptic of the Year. Look, if you Google Dr. Paul Willis, you'll find his page, and there's actually a little video there telling you all about himself by himself, if you see what I mean. I caught up with Paul Willis at the offices of the ABC Television Centre, and I pressed the wrong button on my recording unit, so apologies for the slight loss of quality during this interview, but the interview is pretty interesting nevertheless. And we've come to the ABC. We're talking with Dr. Paul Willis. Now, Dr. Paul, you're currently working for Catalyst, the science show, aren't you?
I am indeed. Most of my time is taken up with Catalyst, but they put me around to do various bits and pieces all throughout the ABC network. We're one big, extremely happy family.
I get that impression. You certainly are, and certainly Catalyst is what... the flagship science show of the ABC, isn't it?
We can happily say that we are the most outstanding science program in the country, simply because there really isn't any competition. We're one of the few science magazines. In fact, I don't think any other country has a science magazine program anymore. That format, the idea that you take half an hour or an hour of television time, devote it to science, and break it down into 3, 4, 5 stories in that time. It used to be quite in vogue if you go back 20 years or so.
It was.
But then even programs like Tomorrow's World in England, that was canned 5 or 6 years ago. So we're something of a dinosaur, but we're actually showing through the audience following that we have that, in fact, there really is a market and a need for science on television in that format.
Oh, I think so. And it's just occurred to me, I remember 2 or 3 years ago, you actually repeated the BBC show, which was James Randi testing homeopathy. Wasn't that a huge ratings winner for
that did very well in that slot. You're actually going back, if I'm not mistaken, to either 2001 or 2002.
That long ago?
That long ago. That was back in the early days of Catalyst.
Wow.
We started in 2001.
Uh-huh.
And that was, I think, one of our first buy-ins. Yeah.
That's memory. The years go by, and and speaking of,
you used to have your own natural coloured hair back in those days, Richard. I vaguely remember.
You remember that?
Yeah.
I'm pleased about that. And speaking about going back years and years, and something I really, really want to talk to you about is before the podcast, before all that sort of stuff, before the Skeptic Zone, Skeptoid, the Skeptic's Guide to the Universe, you were putting together a series of short segments on skepticism meant for broadcast. They were called the Corrects Files.
Yeah, Look, the genesis of the Corrects files is actually an embarrassment, to be honest.
What year are we talking
We're
about?
talking 1996, late 1996.
Wow.
I was catching a train into the ABC because I'd been invited in for an interview for a position as a science broadcast trainee.
Mm-hmm.
And it only actually occurred to me on the train on the way in that as part of the interview they might actually ask me, well, what would you like to do on radio or television? You know, do you have some ideas for content? And at that time, the X-Files was particularly big on television.
Yeah.
It was probably the biggest thing on television at the time. And it really irked me because there's all this woo-woo nonsense about psychics and UFOs and cryptozoology and all that crap. I'm using crap in context there, so it's all right. And
scientific word, I understand.
And so I thought, okay, if they ask me, I'll put together a program and I'll call it the Corrects Files, and it's a skeptical look at nonsense and irrational thinking and
so
stupid stuff. The Corrects Files was a play on the X Files,
yes.
And I literally thought it up on the train on the way in for the interview for the job. And a couple of weeks later, in early '97, I got a phone call saying, well, you've been successful, congratulations, you are one of the trainees. And I'd barely been in the job a week when one of the guys, Craig Donarski, who was at Triple J at that time, who was also on the selection panel, he turned around to me and he said, I really like that idea you had about the Corrects Files. Do you want to produce it for Triple J? Because if you say no to anything at all, you're in trouble. You know, you've got to show enthusiasm. So, yeah, of course, all right, yeah, sure, no problems. You know, I had no radio skills. I had no production skills. I knew nothing. He said, okay, I want the first one next week. So I had to hit the ground running. I had to... Yeah. The Corrects Files became my training ground for radio production, for editing. I did the whole lot, from come up with the ideas for what each episode was going to be, through to finding the talent, going out, interviewing them, taking those tapes back, editing them. We were just getting into electronic editing and things like Pro Tools in those days, producing them, putting those packages together. And so it was about 2 years that I was doing the Corrects Files.
Yeah.
And it just came about as the embarrassment of wanting to look like I knew what I was talking about at the job interview.
But you chose the sceptical outlook on these matters, and we're just casting an eye now over to the monitor here where we've got the website up, and this is the exciting thing. All those episodes are archived, and anybody can go along, and the website is www.abc.net.au/science/corrects, which is spelled CORREX. And there they all are.
Yeah, well, another part of the traineeship, it was a science broadcaster, online, radio and television. Mm-hmm. So not only were these things produced for radio originally, but then I had to adapt them for online as part of the traineeship. And what you're looking at there on that website is stuff I put together 11 years ago, 12 years ago in some cases, as part of my traineeship at the ABC.
And you scored, and we can see almost right at the top of the page, of course, a series of interviews at that time with James Randi.
Yeah, at the end of 97, at the end of the first year, I was slated to go to the AAAS conference in Philadelphia, the American Association for the Advancement of Science, in January or February in 1998. And I was asked if there was anything else I'd like to do whilst I was there in the United States. And I said, well, amongst other ideas I put forward, I said, why don't I go down to Fort Lauderdale and have a chat with James Randi?
Oh, I see. And you went to him. You went to JREF.
Yes, I actually went to Fort Lauderdale to interview James Randi on a variety of subjects, and they became a sort of special part of the Corrects Files site. There they are, the 5 interviews with James Randi.
Yeah, just clicking on the link now, there we go.
Yeah, but and it was great meeting James. He's inspirational in his mischief. But something else that we did on the Corrects Files was we ran for 1998, geez, that's last millennium, we actually ran an audience prediction segment where at the beginning of the year we asked the audience to make predictions for the year, and then at the end of the year we scored them, and that's all up on the site as well. And it was quite incredible, the sorts of things. Some people actually entered it in a very serious tone. Yeah. Other people took it in the tone that it was meant to, of, look, just blab. And the thing is that when you go through, you'll find that if there were any hits at all, it was purely coincident by the people who were there for a laugh. Yeah. But that actually followed on, because part of the launch of the Crex Files originally was we did a psychic test, and this was actually where I first came to the skeptics for assistance, the Australian skeptics. Yes. We organised a test that we could promote as part of the Crex Files initial round of shows, and that was a psychic test. I took 4 common objects and I sealed them up in boxes, and I went round to a couple of psychics and said, is this a doable test? Can you tell me what's in these boxes? And they said yes. Is it possible for people listening to our program to predict what's in these boxes? They said that shouldn't be... you can do it a number of ways. That was the one that blew me away. We could actually do it by clairvoyance and go back in time to when you were putting them in the box, or we could just simply see through the boxes. And it's like, great, I'm going to get creamed here. And the results of that test are all up there. And, of course, none of them came within a bull's roar of guessing what these objects were.
It's interesting you should put those methods to me, because I'm remembering listening to you live on probably Triple J now 10 years ago, where you were talking with a psychic in the studio, and you'd brought in, from memory...
that was James Turnbull. Is it Simon Turnbull?
You brought in a sealed envelope a lottery ticket, wasn't it?
Yes. I bought in a common object, and before we went on air, as you may know, I think this depends on people's personal values when it comes to confronting bullshit. But I don't like to spring things on people too unprepared. Mm-hmm. And I actually think it makes your case stronger if you get permission from the other party to be involved up front, right? And so I said to Simon before we went on, I said, look, Simon, I've got a very simple test that I want to do on air with you. Are you interested? He said, no problem. It'll be dead easy. And I said, okay, well, I've put something in this envelope. You tell me what it is. And we went through it, and he felt the envelope all the way through the interview, and at the end of it he said, it's something to do with space. And we opened it, and it was a lottery ticket. Yeah. But it was one of the scratch lottery tickets, and it was, I can't remember what the theme was, but part of the colouring was a sort of metallic-y coloured, silvery colour on the thing. He said, there you go, that's it. See, it's metallic, that means space. And it was like, how much more rope do you have to give these bastards before they hang themselves, really? Through the Crex Files, I must have phoned every major psychic in the country. You know, I've phoned up people who claim to be psychics to Diana, Lady Di, and all this sort of stuff. Not one of them answered the phone directly. They all had answering machines. How much faith can any human being put in a psychic who needs an answering machine? I mean, they should be able to work with the bloody phones with the ringer turned off and answer it and say, Paul, I know what your question is. Yes. You know, then I would actually have some faith in it.
But seriously, you're right. And But the comeback they always say is, oh, it doesn't work that way. Well, how does it bloody work? You're the psychic. And of course, the merest test is when they...
This is the frustration, not only dealing with them, but like I've done a lot of work against the creationists.
You have,
And... my predecessor, my PhD supervisor, Mark Archer, he gave me the phrase that it's like nailing jelly to a wall. And that's the same with the psychics. It doesn't matter how much you try and say, look, let's analyse what it is you claim that you can do. Let's take a serious look at what you've got. They will always try and find wriggle room to get out of it.
Of course.
They will never admit, I must be wrong.
Yeah.
You know, and Dawkins makes this point about science, and to be honest, I think he makes it in a bit of a wussy way, that the strength of science is that we can, theoretically at least, admit when we're wrong.
Yeah.
I've seen plenty of scientists who don't do that. But that is actually a theoretical strength of science, that when we are shown to be wrong, we will admit that we're wrong.
It comes out in the wash eventually, huh?
And it came as a great shock to me how that doesn't apply in most other areas of reality. It certainly doesn't apply in politics.
Yeah.
And people, involved as psychics or creationists or the anti-vaccination network and homeopathy, and let's go through that whole list of people that we deal with. That concept of them being wrong is never anywhere in their minds. And I actually find that quite frightening.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. And the reasoning and the mental gymnastics they will put themselves through upon the failure of a test. It's the most classic example is the excuses the water diviners give when they fail. And those excuses are rich beyond measure, as Carl Sagan might say, full beyond measure and inventive. But it's all the brain trying to protect itself. If you see what I mean. It's fascinating.
Well, and alluding back to what I did say earlier, science isn't immune from that kind of thinking. And
it's very human.
It is. It's done by humans. And to me, one of the weaknesses of science is the fact that it won't admit that it's done by humans. And so you get a lot of debates lingering on when they shouldn't, because one side simply can't turn around and say, okay, look, I know I've devoted my career to a particular proposition and my working life has been spent working in that field, but I can't say that it's all wrong because it's my life, you know.
Yeah.
And there's a number of debates. I think, for instance, the Out of Africa versus the pan-regional hypothesis for human origins is a classic case. There are a number of diehards in the multi-regional hypothesis. They won't lie down and say die. It doesn't matter what you present to them.
Yeah.
And it's anti-scientific. It's non-scientific.
Yeah.
But it's perfectly human.
Yeah.
And I think that this is a dimension that's all too often lost in philosophers of science, is they just keep thinking that, no, we could do better. We can't. We're only human.
Well, Paul, what a pleasure it's been to catch up with you again. We must do it more often, have another cleansing ale and another chat. But
Why just one?
Why just one? Just before we wind it up, I'm really keen that the listeners go and check out the Corrects files, because let's see how many of them are there. There was 1997 and 1998.
And I think there were 20-odd produced each year.
20-odd, and all sorts of things. Talking to a Psychic, Faces in Space, Ancient Technology, Good Drugs, Future Reader, Bible Code, Superstitions, Alternative Medicines in there somewhere, Dreams, Energy, Amazing Devices, James Randi. The show goes for about 10 minutes a pop, isn't it?
About 5.
About 5 minutes. Lovely, bite-sized chunks of skeptical investigations, information. You interview all sorts of people. I well remember the one you did when you were interviewing an Egyptologist about her opinion whether the pyramids were constructed by aliens. So, folks, the Corrects files, once again, www.abc.net.au/science/corrects, CORREX. And Paul, I certainly hope that you may be able to join us for the 2010 Skeptics Convention.
That sounds like a lot of fun. If I get half a chance, I'll be there.
Excellent. Paul Willis, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, right, guys. I was talking to Richard Saunders the other day.
All right.
He said if we record a trailer for our podcast, Skeptics with a K, he'd play it on their show.
Well, that's nice of him. That's very generous.
It's pretty good. I'm not sure what we could do, though. I mean...
Well, I suppose you tell people what the show's about.
But it's basically just this.
Yeah, but we talk about science and skepticism and things.
That's true. I suppose you mentioned the website address.
What, merseysideskeptics.org.uk?
Yeah, or just search us on iTunes. Oh, and then we could end with a big song like The Skeptics with a K podcast.
No. Don't do that.
Now it's time for Dr. Rachie Reports with Dr. Rachael Dunlop.
Hello listeners and welcome to Dr. Rachie Reports. This week I talked to another scientist working in the field in medical research. Dr. Adam Hamlin is a neuroscientist working in the nerve cell survival lab at the University of Queensland. I met Adam at the recent Skeptics Convention in Brisbane. And here, Adam kindly takes me on a tour of his lab where he explains about his research into neurodegeneration and Alzheimer's disease. So we're now walking into the foyer of the Queensland Brain Institute. It's very impressive. It's
we've got this 4-storey high artwork here by Fiona Hall.
Okay.
Who's a famous Australian artist.
All right, well, let's go through the security part, Adam.
Swipe us in.
It's all very high-tech here, isn't it?
It is a really beautiful building.
And so we're at the Queensland University because it's the annual Australian Skeptics Convention this weekend,
And so the conference has been held just around the corner, 5 minutes away. So this is the level I work on, it's level 6.
So we're at level 6, are we?
Yep.
Okay, that was quick.
So we work on the brain of everything from worms right through to humans, here including flies and bees.
And you're looking at Alzheimer's, is that your primary area of research?
So our lab is looking at neurodegeneration.
And Alzheimer's is a form of dementia, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right, it's the most common. And it is going to be a serious problem in the future. You really don't want to be 20 or 30 years old today, because by about 2050, when that generation is getting older and starts to get neurodegenerative diseases, and the population is ageing, but also we're not having children anymore. So we have low birth rates with an ageing population, and we're going to get neurodegenerative diseases. So unless we really find something to help people with neurodegeneration, we're going to be in serious trouble.
So we've come into your research lab
this
now.
This is just the areas where the bench science goes on. A lot of people may think of science labs as being very clean and pristine, but as you can see, they're busy places, and
we've got a lot of benches around us with lots of chemicals and shot bottles and
lab
buffers,
books
lab books. Is this your bench here?
Yeah, this is my bench here. I work on a mouse model of Alzheimer's disease where we're trying to understand the mechanisms of the degeneration. And we have a theory that the amyloid, which is a component of Alzheimer's disease and which is the marker of people that have Alzheimer's disease on autopsy, they have what's known as an amyloid plaque in the brain.
And it's kind of like a tangle of proteins
it's
a sticky mess, isn't it?
So we're actually looking at a stage of the amyloid before it turns into this large conglomerate of protein in a soluble form. And we have a theory that this is interacting with a particular receptor in a particular part of the brain, and that's actually causing the degeneration. And I use mice as my model, and I inject amyloid proteins into the brain, and I measure degeneration by visualising parts of the brain using a process called immunohistochemistry, where we use an antibody that recognises the certain shape of a protein, and I soak the brains in this antibody, and then I can visualise it. So I can look at it under the microscope and actually physically see what's happening inside the brain.
So you actually have to harvest the brain first, don't you? And then you slice it very finely.
Yes. I have to harvest the brains from the mice, and then I slice them up. I slice them up into 40 micron slices, which is 1/25th of a millimetre. We use a really, really, really sharp knife to do that.
It's actually a knife contained within a machine, though, isn't it, Adam? It's not actually just a kitchen knife.
It's not just a kitchen knife. It's a very nice machine. We can see some of the machines on the way out there on level 4. We have a histology suite that has all the different knives where we can cut anything from nanometre sections to use an electron microscopy right through to the large, relatively large sections that I do at 40 microns.
So how big... Can you describe to our listeners what a mouse brain be when you take it out of a mouse?
So a mouse brain is about a centimetre long.
So it's kind of as big as your thumbnail, maybe, or something like that?
Yeah, it's about that size. Right. It's very small. But mice actually have all the same brain areas that a human has. It has all the same neurotransmitters, all the same proteins. So we can use mice to model the mechanisms of how amyloid is killing brain cells, and that should relate to humans.
But one of the problems with Alzheimer's in humans is that you can't really diagnose it as it's occurring, can you? It's really only post-mortem or when people die that you can really see.
Yes. We have two main streams to our research. One is understanding the mechanisms, and the other is how can we diagnose it correctly and before the degeneration sets in, because once the brain has degenerated and died, there's nothing we can do about it.
Really? Okay.
So we have another project, which is an MRI project, magnetic resonance imaging. So it looks at movement of water molecules in the brain, and it allows us to visualise brains in vivo, so in a living person or animal. By the time someone goes to a neuropsychologist with dementia problems, it's too late by that stage. The disease has probably been going for 20 years.
20 years,
yeah,
wow.
By the time you get severe enough cognitive deficits to actually go and seek help from a neuropsychologist.
So we're just walking through the rest of Adam's lab now. So are all these people in this area working on Alzheimer's?
Yeah, just in this area. Over next to us is the Willis group. They work on epilepsy and motor neuron disease, and they're geneticists. People might be familiar with Stephen Hawking. He's probably the most famous person with motor neuron disease.
Yes.
He's got a very special case because it's usually fatal within 5 years.
Yeah, he's got a form of Lou Gehrig's disease, hasn't he? And that's usually fatal within about 3 years.
Yes. So
but he's exceptional.
A special case.
Yeah, yes. And you mentioned that you work with mice, Adam. Do you have an animal facility here, or is that somewhere else on campus?
On level 2, we have an excellent animal facility, which is look after all of our transgenic mice for us, as well as all of our lines, our breedings, and all of that.
And transgenic mice are mice that have had their genes modified in some way, so they might have a gene removed or an extra gene added, so that you can then study the impact of that gene on disease.
It's a really important tool. Finding out what genes do.
Which is, I guess, what people used to refer to in the 90s as the scary term genetic engineering, right?
Yes, we do that every day. No, there's nothing scary about it. We're not creating monsters. But still, it's heavily controlled. We're in what now is called a PC2 environment, which is called a physical confinement area 2, because we do work on transgenic animals and we have transgenic tissues, that all has to be contained, so there's no unintentional releases, it's called.
So is this to prevent something like the movie Outbreak, where, a virus escapes and then infects the whole of the community and everybody dies, right? Okay.
Yeah, it's a bit like that.
Yeah, it's not really like that.
No.
That's what Hollywood makes it out to be right?
It's more because it sounds scary than it would actually make any difference. I mean, genetics are always changing, even in the wild.
And it might just be something as simple as one protein is modified. Right. It's not like they've got 5 heads, right?
No. I haven't seen that yet.
No, I haven't either. It's important to emphasise, though, to our listeners that there is a very strict process that you have to follow when you're using animals like that, isn't there?
Absolutely, it is. And I think it's really good that the public does know that animals are used in research. They need to be used in research. But it's heavily controlled. Like, we have to go through ethics committees for every single one of our procedures. On those ethics committees, both scientists and lay people, and even people from animal rights groups sit on the committee. So everything we do to the animals is heavily controlled and highly ethical. None of our animals will go through any suffering whatsoever, else it would not be approved. If ever we're doing surgery, there's always the right anaesthetics are used, and there's analgesics used. So it'd be just like treating a human if we were doing surgery. And we have humane ways of sacrificing animals as well, with either barbiturate overdose or other methods that are approved by the ethics committee.
We've just walked into another microscope room.
This is our main microscope room for level 6.
This looks like an expensive room, Adam.
It is extremely expensive room, millions and millions of dollars worth of equipment.
I can see probably about 6 or maybe more. How many microscopes are in here?
There's 6 microscopes in here. We have 2 normal upright fluorescence microscopes, so that allows us to visualise fluorophores that we stick in the brain, so we can look at the cells. They're all hooked up with high-end digital cameras that are about $25,000 each for the cameras.
Wow. And so is this the room, Adam, where you take photos of your brains?
Yes,
because you sent Richard Saunders and I some beautiful pictures of brain sections after you saw the earrings that he makes for some of my cells.
Yeah, I was really inspired by the pictures that you sent Richard that he made the earrings for. I saw it on Twitter and went, wow, I'd love Richard to do something with the images I take, because I hadn't really thought of doing anything with them, so I sent him a few pictures, and this is the room where I take those pictures. We can use 3 or 4 colours to look at brain cells, so it's a red, a green or a blue, so we can look at 3 different things in one brain section. It's just a way of getting data. So you image the brains and you get the data, but the images look absolutely spectacular as well. So
they do.
It's really inspiring when you take a really nice shot. So it's a little bit more than the data because it looks pretty as well.
Yeah.
You're actually looking down at brain cells in the brain. So it's really amazing just to see them and look at them.
Well, this is amazing, Adam, and thanks so much for showing us around your lab. And good luck with the rest of your research, Adam. And if you'd like to know more about the work of Dr. Adam Hamlin and his colleagues at the Queensland Brain Institute, head to www.qbi.uq.edu.au. And for more information about Alzheimer's, you can search Google or go to www.alzheimers.org.au. And until next time, this has been Dr. Rachie Reports.
This is Brian Dunning from the Skeptoid podcast. Been enjoying your critical thinking shows in audio only? You've been missing half the fun. Check out my new video podcast, In Fact, on iTunes or click it on Skeptoid.com. 3 pilot episodes of In Fact are available now for immediate viewing. I'm looking for sponsorship to produce an entire first season of 13 episodes, and hopefully many more seasons to follow. You can see the whole lineup and get all the other nuts and bolts if you go to Skeptoid.com and click on In Fact. And don't forget to come back to the Skeptic Zone when you're done watching. I think it's audio only, but that's okay, I still like it. This is Brian Dunning from Skeptoid.com.
Join us now for drinking skeptically in the Think Tank.
And I'd like to welcome everybody to the Think Tank tonight. Welcome, Eran.
Thank you, Richard.
Welcome, Dr. Rachie.
Hi, Richard.
Welcome, everybody. Oh, okay, that's all. It's just Eran and Dr. Rachie and yours truly, Richard Saunders, in the Think Tank tonight. Folks, we're in a very strange room. Now, often we come down to the lower level of our favourite club, which is the Canterbury Hurlston Park RSL Club in the wonderful suburb of Hurlston Park in Sydney. And this used to be the sports bar, Eran. In fact, I remember coming here to see World Cup soccer games, but now it's a giant storage area full of dead chairs, dead gaming machines.
I think we mentioned the gaming machines last time. This time, a lot of the gaming machines, a lot of the pokies seem to be gone.
Yeah.
But there's old chairs stacked three layers up.
It's very strange. But it's good for us. It's good for us. We can sort of sneak back here and...
there's no chance anybody will ever find us.
You reckon?
Girls and boys, if anything happens, you don't hear from us again, please send the rescue teams.
Yes.
Well,
anyway,
I'm just running through. Sorry, I was a bit distracted because I'm looking through the Twitter stream, Richard, because I just missed the AVN homeopathy seminar.
Let's kick off this think tank with that bit of news. As we were actually having a nice Chinese dinner, which is what we usually do before the think tank, the webinar hosted by the Australian Vaccination Network?
It was hosted by the Australian Vaccination Network and featuring Fran Sheffield.
Fran Sheffield.
From Homeopathy Plus.
She's the homeopath who has produced a PDF, which we'll link to in the show notes, about the benefits of homeopathic vaccination for all sorts of diseases.
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah. And it's interesting to note that Fran Sheffield is actually the character name of the nanny. Remember that show?
Oh, that's true, yeah.
And she makes about as much sense, I think.
She does. I haven't heard her speak. Unfortunately, as I just mentioned, I missed it because I'm here. But I'm just following the hashtag AutismAVN on Twitter to see how people responded tonight. And, of course, it was about how homeopathy can assist in autism. hence the hashtag.
What are some of the gems that have come out?
People saying, send this woman straight to the HCCC.
Yeah.
She's claiming that she recommended homeopathy instead of conventional medicine.
HCCC, of course, stands for...
The Healthcare Complaints Commission.
Yep, for our friends overseas.
In New South Wales.
Yep.
She's flogging books and videos galore from her website. So that makes her a health practitioner by definition of the HCCC.
But apparently, I don't want to spoil your thunder, but somewhere there they're all twittering that she actually says it. That
she's a health practitioner.
Healthcare practitioner, yeah.
Apparently, somebody said autism is linked with vaccination, medication and dietary issues. I did see something here earlier about Meryl Dorey saying something about a study from the Lancet. And I assume that that's the Wakefield study. I'm not sure, but of course we all know that's been discredited. And Wakefield's currently under investigation by the GMC in the UK.
What a, if I can use the expression, what an unholy alliance it is for the AVN to be in bed with the far end, the extreme end of the homeopathic people.
And here's a surprise for you and probably for our listeners too. She doesn't endorse vaccination.
Fran Sheffield?
Yeah.
I'm shocked.
Funny
I
that.
know, yeah. So I missed it, but I have registered so I can go home and watch it at my leisure. So I'm not sure if I'll be able to cope with that, but sounds
did somebody say that Diane, our friend Diane, who's not here tonight, her cat threw up or something?
Apparently. Somebody tweeted that the first casualty of the webinar was Diane's cat that threw up. Yeah, apparently.
I'm not surprised.
So it's been a busy day for Meryl today, Richard.
Yeah.
And over the last few days.
Oh, you've got some more news. Let's go to that. Absolutely. Yeah.
Now, a lot of our listeners would remember the story of Dana McCaffrey. Her parents were awarded with the Fred Award this year at our convention.
Well, listeners will recall that from our very last episode, in fact.
Exactly, yeah. So they set up a Facebook page in memory of Dana McCaffrey, and yesterday, or the day before, Meryl Dorey decided she'd post on the Facebook page. Yeah.
And guess what? She wasn't posting condolences or sympathy.
No, you've read it, Eran. What can you tell our listeners what she was posting?
The problem is not what she wrote so much. I mean, the fact that she saw fit to go on one of her rants about vaccines on the page dedicated to the memory of a child who died of whooping cough, a vaccine-preventable disease, is diabolical. It just shows her true nature.
Yeah.
Not that we're surprised, but it's still absolutely appalling.
Well, it's interesting that you should say rant, because it wasn't just one post either. When people responded to some of the statistics that she put in the post, and as we all know, she misquotes statistics to suit her cause.
It's like, it really does remind me of the creationists who would take quotes out of context all the time in the old days when we were battling them.
Well, she's done this. She does it over and over again. She says that the vaccination rate is 95.1%, yet there's been a whooping cough epidemic. And how do you explain that? Well, it must be because the vaccine doesn't work. But what she neglects to mention is that in the area where she lives, it's down to about 86%. And in the Byron Bay area, which is adjacent to where she lives, it's 68%.
68%?
68%, yeah.
Well done, Meryl.
Yeah, I know. So she's not even taking credit for her hard work, you know.
She should be. Meryl, what's wrong with you? Come on.
She should be saying...
Stand up and take the bows.
Yay for me, you know.
Yeah.
But...
Can you pass me the paper bag, please?
But she went on to argue with people. But I just wanted to read out the last post that was on there today.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Actually, just before I do that, I'll mention that Dave McCaffrey got on there on December the 7th and said that, she'd had enough chance and he was disappointed that she'd come to this page and to please show respect and to be a decent human being, and they've suffered enough and please just go away. It's so inappropriate to do this. But she kept going because she has some sort of complex where she cannot keep her mouth shut. She cannot. I don't understand it.
I love that old expression, she only opens her mouth to change feet.
Well, that's applicable in this case, I think.
You like that? Yeah, it's good, yeah.
But I just wanted to read out a post from our friend Fuzz Twin. who was the last word on this thread, she wrote a brilliant post which pawned, how do you say that word?
Pwned, I think? Spawned?
Pawned.
See, we're showing our age because all the young the young people listening to the show. Anyway, go on.
Anyway,
we know what you mean.
Yeah, completely
means
pawned her.
Owned, got the better of.
Yeah.
Won.
She says, "Dearest Meryl, how nice to see you here, sharing your opinions with the rest of us, on the very page dedicated to the memory of a young child that was the catalyst for the complaint against you and your organisation. You have no right of reply in this forum. Opinions and judgments here are based on facts. You are nothing but a conspiracy theorist spreading misinformation and fear in the community to such an extent that a government authority has seen fit to investigate your effects on public health. I see no valid reason for your presence here, and the only reasons I can see are either you are insane or out to intimidate. I draw your attention to the following. Read closely. Healthcare Complaints Act 1993, Section 98. Offence: intimidation or bribery of complainants. 1. A person who, by threat, intimidation or inducement, persuades or attempts to persuade another person, A, not to make a complaint to the Commission or Registration Authority, or not to continue with a complaint made to the Commission or Registration Authority. Then she says, you made a very bad choice posting here, Meryl. Rest assured that every character you type will be forwarded to the Healthcare Complaints Commission as evidence of intimidation, and every character thus far is already on its way. Meryl, get a clue. Yeah, so... I mean, you're so right that she opens her mouth to change feet, because she could be accused of intimidation under this section of the Healthcare Complaints Act.
Let's encourage her to keep commenting.
Yeah.
Go for it, Meryl.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's something I find quite interesting about Meryl Dorey and people like that. Do you really think that they think that we are being paid off by the big pharmaceutical companies?
Is that a question? Of course they think that.
They really do?
Of course they do.
Basically what you're asking, are there conspiracy theories genuinely believed in?
Yeah,
I have no doubt.
They really do think. So in their mind, sitting there, they're probably listening to this podcast, hello, thinking that we are stooges when the direct pay of Big Pharma.
Which would be nice.
Richard, they believe that there are mind control chips in the vaccine for H1N1. That's even more preposterous than us being in the pay of Big Pharma. Of course they believe that.
Wow. It's just mind-boggling, isn't it? Here we are, just doing this little podcast from some basement of some club,
with piles of chairs,
not in the Caribbean, on our money from Big Pharma. It's astonishing.
But look, again, this is not the craziest stuff that they believe.
Yeah.
First of all, they believe that there's a conspiracy to poison children, a conspiracy by the government. Now, why would the government want to poison our children? What incentive is there? Okay, let's for a moment assume that there is an incentive to the big pharma to poison the children, okay, because they can make money off it. What's the incentive for the government? Just something that somebody who's reasonable in thinking cannot understand.
And the government are made out of many parents.
Yeah, but they probably don't secretly.
You guys don't get it at all, do you?
Oh?
You don't understand the structure of the Illuminati. You see, because the whole point of the New World Order and the Illuminati is to take over the United States and give it over to the UN and to the Chinese army.
I always thought Rachel was in on this.
I am.
You see?
My voice doesn't sound the same anymore. I have got a mind control pill in my brain.
A couple more items before we get on to the predictions. Oh, yes, predictions. Big shout out to Fred Bremer in Vancouver and the Vancouver Skeptics in the pub who video Skyped me earlier today. That was a real hoot. There I was suddenly in the middle of the pub there, almost having a beer with them, but not quite. But it was really great to hook up with them.
Were you wearing pants?
I was wearing pants, as a matter of fact. I know I was home and I was working at home.
You were working, right?
I was, but...
It's not mandatory to wear pants.
I happened, unlike Phil Plait, who says, who am I? I'm just a guy who does a blog in his underwear. I was wearing pants.
Nice to know.
A big congratulations to our dear friend DJ Grothy.
Oh, yes.
The new president, as of January, of the James Randi Educational Foundation. And big encouragement to Dr. Phil Plate, who's going on to do a TV project.
Isn't that exciting?
Yeah, I can't wait to hear more about that. Good on you, Phil, and thank you very much for your hard work with the James Randi Educational Foundation. And also, a little shout-out to somebody who wrote to us just yesterday. I'll just say it's Andrew from Victoria who wrote the nicest email to us, just thanking us so sincerely for our work on the show, and he really enjoys listening to it.
It was a very nice email.
Thanks, Andrew. We appreciate it.
We did, Andrew.
Because
Thank you.
we have to put up with Richard every week, and it's really hard.
I should edit that out, but all right.
But you won't.
I won't. And just the last bit of roundup information from me for this is some listeners probably know I was on a program here called Sunrise in the past week, and you can see that video clip at www.skeptics.com.au. Just look for the link that says Richard Saunders Talks About Astrology. I was on with Milton Black, who is Australia's leading astrologer and psychic.
And wasn't he psychic?
He was very psychic. Head for www.skeptics.com.au and check out my TV appearance. And while you're there, why not subscribe to The Skeptic, the Journal of Australian Skeptics? It's a good magazine.
It is.
It's a very good magazine.
And the latest issue is in print right now.
In the print, yeah.
Yep. I received an email from somebody who seems to be the webmaster of skepsis.fi, which is the website of the Finnish skeptics. His name is Otto Mäkelä, and he wrote to me thus: "You may be interested to know that the 2009 Finnish Skeptics Hoo-Ha Prize," and he writes here in parentheses that hoo-ha means flim-flam.
Flim-flam.
Was awarded to Rokotus Info Rai, which means Vaccination Info Society. So basically, their equivalent of the Ben Spoon Award was awarded to their equivalent of the Australian Vaccination Network with a similarly deceptive name. So that's, it's happening all over the world. Unfortunately, it's not just something that's unique to us. And then I found out through Otto, who pointed out that he thought the Dutch skeptics did the same. Now, the link to the Dutch skeptics website didn't help me much because Diane isn't here today, and I did call her and hoped she might be able to help me. But the Dutch skeptics website, surprisingly, is all in Dutch. So, and my Dutch is limited to about 3 words. So,
clog.
Yeah, all of them to do with food.
Clog.
So,
Tulip. Windmill.
No. What are those things that Diane makes us eat? Frikandel.
Special.
Yeah.
Okay.
Licorice.
Okay. So, now that we've finished talking about Dutch non-skeptics, Dutch noms, let's talk about Dutch skeptics. I contacted Jan Willem Nienhuis. I hope I'm pronouncing this correctly. Probably not, though. The way I contacted him was actually funny. I was looking through the website for contact details, but I don't know how they say contact details in Dutch. So I was basically roaming through a few pages that seemed to be about the organization, and there was a phone number there. And I just called the number, 001131, dialing the Dutch number and hoping that it's not the phone number for some government department or maybe a homeopath. But anyway, Jan answered the phone. I woke him up. It was 7:45 in the morning in Holland. And he sent me information about their prize. So I'll read a few snippets from his email. It's fairly long. He translated it for me. So basically they have something called the Master Kakadoris Prize. It's similar to the Ben Spoon Award, but it's given by the VTDK, which is the Association Against Quackery.
No, that sounds
Dutch
good.
Association Against Quackery. So they have that association, and the organization basically they provide that, also the award, that prize. And I'll tell you the name of the organization that won it. It says here, I can't hide for you that the jury hesitates someone in electing this organization. They don't say what the organization is just yet. Because
attention please members and guests, the next courtesy bus will depart in 5 minutes time, going to Helston Park, Dollar Chill, Marrickville, Canterbury and Campsie. That's a courtesy bus departing in 5 minutes' time. Thank you.
And Rotterdam.
Rotterdam, yeah. So actually, I'll start with the name of the organisation.
Right.
That'll be easier. It's the organisation that won that Master Kakadoris Prize for this year is called the Dutch Association for Discerning Vaccination.
Oh God!
So they all
They're all the
say
same.
just this.
Why don't they call
names?
Why don't they just call themselves "Vaccination is really bad and we don't approve of it" organisation or something? Be honest, people.
Anyway, so what they're saying is it says that the organisation does not usually give prizes to this kind of organisation, and they hesitated because usually the prize is awarded to organisations, institutions or persons that promote quackery, but that are expected to be able to mend their ways and that might react to appeal to their conscience or scientific data. Committing quackery generally does not merit a nomination for a prize. The Dutch Association for Discerning Vaccination was established by homeopaths and naturopaths, and in a considerable number of them is actively practicing.
Your face.
Yeah. So, basically, they've decided to give it to them anyway because they were just so deserving.
Juryrapport Meester Kakadorisprijs 2009. Ook dit jaar kostte het de Vereniging tegen de Kwakzalverij weinig moeite een aantal kanshebbers voor de gevreesde trofee te nomineren. Onbetwiste winnaar toch is dit jaar een organisatie omdat zij inderdaad een kwalijke rol heeft gespeeld in de publieke opinie. De Nederlandse vereniging Kritisch Prikken is opgericht door homeopaten en antroposofen, van wie een aanzienlijk deel ook actief praktiseert. Propaganda van een organisatie als de NVKP, die op menig journalist en krantenlezer een serieuze indruk maakt, zou ertoe kunnen leiden dat het aantal gevaccineerden daalt en tot sterfgevallen leidt onder niet-gevaccineerden. Omdat het actief kwakzalven buiten het verband van deze vereniging gebeurt, heeft de jury besloten aan de NVKP de prijs toe te kennen. Vereniging Kritisch Prikken, hartelijk gefeliciteerd namens iedereen van de Skeptic Zone.
So there's more information here, and the website of the Dutch Skeptics is Skepsis, skepsis.nl. And .nl for Netherlands, and the Finnish Skeptics is at skepsis.fi for Finland. So they both gave prizes similar to ours to similar organizations.
Did you have any indication that they may have been inspired by us, or was this before us?
No, I believe this was done. At least one of them was definitely given before us.
Okay, because we certainly didn't have any knowledge of that. This is the first I've heard about it.
Definitely not we don't even have anybody who speaks Finnish, but no, we didn't know. We've been obviously fighting against the AVN this entire year, and the decision to award it to the AVN was unanimous. I don't think they knew about each other either. It's just, I think maybe the time has come for the anti-vaccination lobby.
Well, you people listening in the Netherlands, please contact your friends in Finland, and people in Finland, please contact your friends in the Netherlands. Get together. And we'll come and visit everybody. Just send us the airfare.
And all of you contact us on skeptics.com.au.
It's time, Rachel. Eran, it's time. It really is time.
Do we sing now?
Yeah, we do. Listeners might remember at the beginning of the year, one of our very early episodes in January, it was Tiffany.
That's
Our good friend Tiffany Day, Stefan, the other co-host who comes on sometimes, yourself and myself, we made all these predictions for this year.
We did, Richard, we did.
We did.
And it's this time of the year we like to look back at our predictions and see how we went.
Let's see how we went. Well, let's see
Let's have a look.
Can I predict that you did at least as well as professional, what should I call it?
Psychics?
Well, I was going
to
use a pejorative. Psychics.
Numpties?
Well, I mean, I'm not going to go through them all, but more or less we made about 19 predictions.
Mm-hmm.
And I went through the other day and I Googled all the results and everything, all the big stories of the year, and we got about 66% correct. We really did.
Can you maybe give a few examples of things that you got?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. President Obama would have an embarrassing incident in his first 6 months of office. Yes, he did. He made a big gaffe on the Jay Leno show.
About the Special Olympics, wasn't it?
That's right. An Earth-like planet would be found. Well, apparently there was one found, GLIES ESE581D was found.
That's such a romantic name.
It is.
What a sad thing that came right. Stefan predicted that 6 people would be shot in the United States, but not in a mall. Sadly, that happened in March in Silicon Valley. 6 people were shot.
At a home, weren't they? Was that right?
I think so. I don't have all the details, but it happened, which was not very happy. Things like, I think it was Rachael said that Prince William would shave his beard off. Wow.
I don't remember saying that.
You said it. You also said that Kevin Rudd would have more Twitter followers than Malcolm Turnbull.
Oh, and was I right?
Yeah, by a factor of about 10, I think.
Oh,
that's right.
No,
You were very right. Did you
only
get 2 points for that?
or times 10?
You said a factor of 10, so that's...
A factor of 10, okay.
Yeah, quite a lot, substantially more, and various other things. We got some wrong. I predicted the wrong team would win the local football competition. We got here the Blue Mountains Panther would be seen. I don't remember any reports, but not found. Well, it certainly wasn't found.
So
that's
I get half a
right.
point for that. I think that was my prediction.
Petrol prices would go up. Well, they went up. They went down, but they sort of went up. The last prediction we made is we would do better than the professional psychics.
Oh.
Okay? Now, Rachael, what do you have there from a printout from the following magazine? 2009 Australian Psychic Directory.
Ooh.
Oh, yes. This was published probably in December last year, and it's got, what is it, Rachael? Their best predictions.
It's got the top 40 predictions for 2009 from members of the Australian Psychics Association. So they've got a number of categories which they've all addressed, and we're going to go through some of them and just see how they went for 2009. We have to say there are a few more weeks remaining, Richard.
There are.
So it's not quite the end yet. But
I think we're on pretty safe ground.
Yeah, we've already been through it, so I don't know that they can pull themselves out of the hole. But let's have a look at some of the celebrity predictions that they made. They said, one of them said that George Clooney would find his true love by the end of 2009 and will finally commit to a long-term relationship. Anyone?
I don't think that happened. I don't follow this kind of gossip, but...
No, it didn't happen.
Didn't happen, okay.
Bow. The second one is that Nicole Kidman will adopt a male child, and it may be of Aboriginal descent. And a royal romance will be connected to her, but there will be no truth behind it. She will be featured in Australian airline advertising and will change image for a short time to sport very dark hair.
Well, that must have happened very quickly, because I missed that.
Well, that's about 3 or 4 in there, and any of them
no,
ring a bell?
So,
No, bow. Fail. There's one here about Pink, the singer Pink.
Yeah.
She will get into trouble with the French paparazzi.
I'm sure she got in trouble with somebody, but not with the French paparazzi. As far as I know.
She will also be involved in a funny epic movie around October-November 2009 with media promotion featuring an alligator.
No,
I don't think so. No.
Fail. However, here's one which is a hit. They say Pink may also be in a mobile phone promotion. Now, she was actually in a mobile phone promotion.
You'll notice the may.
That's true, may also. And that's to say, instead of the movie, it might be a mobile phone promotion. So we're going to, put $10 each way.
We'll put it.
But we got to pay that because she was doing ads for Optus in Australia.
Oh, okay.
In conjunction with her world tour.
Okay.
So she did do that. They also say that she will be purchasing a holiday home in Sydney, and there is a baby for her in September 2010.
Oh, well.
Well, it's next year.
Well, we can't pay that. And she didn't buy a house in Sydney, so that's a fail.
There are 3 weeks left.
Let's have a look at some others here. Politics. Let's have a look at politics, shall we?
Let's.
Now, for Kevin Rudd, who's our new Prime Minister, although he's not that new anymore, I guess.
Not
more than 2 years.
This is quite a long one, but I'll just quote the one. None of it was right, by the way, but here's one that says, if he falls victim to a scandal, he will voluntarily withdraw into the background and become more powerful than he was before. Did he
What
fall?
does it even mean?
Well, I don't know. This is from Shay de Montfort. What does anything she say mean? I'm not really sure.
But the point is, it didn't happen.
No, it didn't happen. It didn't happen.
Yeah.
There's one here from Simon Turnbull. He said, insightfully, that Pakistan is likely to be forced into ridding itself of extremists rather than allowing the military to foster them, as they realise that India and the USA will become less and less tolerant of underground aggressive behaviour towards India and Afghanistan.
That's not a prediction. It was already happening. It was already happening it's been happening for like 3 years. So what exactly is the prediction here?
Yeah.
But in any case, it hasn't changed. So he's probably wrong in the sense that there's been no change at all there.
No.
It's not like they've been doing any better or probably doing a bit worse, because the Taliban has been making inroads into Pakistan.
Yeah. So that's a fail, right?
Yeah.
What are some more notable fails there?
Do you remember any in particular?
He failed to predict.
Well, there's one about Oprah that says she's going to be getting more involved in politics and could rise in ranks herself in the political arena in years to come.
Don't think so.
Not going to happen before 2012.
Another one here. A well-known political leader in China will be assassinated.
Yeah.
I don't think so.
Now, I have to mention this one. This one actually got a half a point because we have a TV celebrity here called Rove. He does a sort of variety show on Sunday nights. And this person here said that a marriage will be announced for Rove in March. Now, I couldn't find whether that was true or not, but the ceremony will be taking place near a beach. Now,
he was on a beach.
It was on a beach.
Yeah.
They say near a beach, but you have to give them half a point for that.
Well,
so.
they've done so poorly.
We've
got to throw them a couple of bones.
Half a point. Here's another one. Assassination attempt on the Pope. Not that I know of. A UFO sighting will be seen by hundreds of Australians.
Here's another one from Shay de Montfort. At least it makes sense this time. A groundswell in alternative fuels results in a reshaping of two economies.
What?
Two economies?
What does it mean?
Yeah, but there was no groundswell in alternative fuels.
But what does this two economies mean? Is she talking town, city, state, country, region?
Well, I don't know, Richard. You explain what this means that she said as
You're
well.
a friend. You tell us.
I don't know.
Where's the other bit that she said that made no sense at all? Oh, here we go.
Look
this
for the
is
part
great.
where it says Shay.
Yeah, no, I am. It says, this is weather from Shay. It says, we are heading into a global cooling period, not a global warming period.
Yeah, okay.
I'm not finished yet. Harsh winter and strong storms will further lash the economy for 2 more years. The cooling will advance for 8 years to bring it to halfway through its 20-year cycle. Watch the bees and frogs. The sunspots go quiet. Store water for more droughts. Each home should get its own tank now.
Well, the storm... first of all, a few of these things just don't make any sense at all.
No.
The winter was the mildest we've had in years. The sunspots...
So we didn't have a harsh winter?
No, we didn't have a harsh winter. The sunspots were already very, very quiet at the end of 2009, and there was already a lengthy period of no sunspots at all.
But we knew
at that
that.
time. Yes, we knew that. That's not it's not a prediction. Basically, it's not a prediction. She was actually announcing something was already happening. The droughts, well, we've been in a drought since 2000. So, I mean, kind of again, it's not exactly a prediction to say there's going to be a drought.
Yeah, but what about watching the bees and frogs, Eran? What does that mean? Does that just to calm you down, or are they going to disappear, or... I mean, I tried to suggest to Richard when we were discussing this the other night that she was inferring the colony collapse that's happening with the bees, but he said that was too much of a stretch.
Watch the bees and frogs is not a prediction.
Actually, to say that she knows what she's talking about here is too much of a stretch. Try to extract some meaning without being somehow connected to the brilliant mind that is Shay.
Oh no, this is a great one from Shay. This one's great. In fact, Richard asked Desiree Schell about this on Skype the other night because she says that Russia will again engage in throwing its weight around and will look to Alaska. A tense and nervous situation will ensue.
That hasn't happened. But what we know is that the governor of Alaska was definitely looking at them.
This is true. She could see Russia out of her kitchen window, couldn't she, Sarah Palin?
Maybe she could see the frogs and the bees
and the
too.
Bees maybe too, yeah. But what was the one, Richard, that Shay said about you must just feel the goodness of the nature or something?
Was that Shay? I can't remember if that was Shay. Somebody made...
Sorry, did it make sense?
No, it didn't.
It was Shay.
It made absolutely no sense.
Somebody said... oh, here we go. No, it's not Shay, but this one says, in part, Each of us needs to be connected to nature for 2009 to feel at peace. So there we go. 40 predictions, probably some more, because there's some predictions which have multiple predictions. Some are
and
so
some
vague.
predictions that are not predictions.
Some predictions are not predictions. But our best research could find that they got roughly 10% right, and that's being generous with some
It was being
hits.
generous, yeah.
So the
Can
skeptics
I just say
get
something? I've got it. You know how if you bet on horses, you get prizes for the first 3 horses in certain combinations, but you also get, because it's so unlikely that you'll get the last one, you also get something for the last one.
Oh, yeah.
I would say they've beaten chance so magnificently. By only getting they should get a bent spoon. A wooden spoon.
A wooden spoon. Well,
you should get a wooden spoon because 10%. How can you get 10%? I mean, it requires a special effort. I mean, if you just make predictions that make sense, you will get more than 10%.
But that's the point, Eran, because some of these are saying you must be more in connection with nature and the trees.
Or you must
watch not a prediction.
Watch the frogs and the bees. It's like, hello.
They're not making predictions that make sense. And they're not predictions either.
And most of the ones that they do predict, which you can actually look, are wrong. So the skeptics got roughly 66% right now predictions, the psychics 10%.
So the 66%, does that include that last prediction?
Yes.
Yeah, it does.
Okay. The last prediction was that we predicted we'd do better than the psychics.
Yeah.
Okay.
So there were some major events that happened in 2009, Richard, that we thought we should...
Oh, here it is. Yes. Thanks,
some of the
Rach.
things that they obviously missed. The big events that you would expect if you had a psychic ability.
But
you might...
but the thing is, you're focusing on little things. Okay, I'll let you go with that first before I make my comment.
All right. Now, these are the things that we expected to see in the pages of the Psychic Directory to warn us all for the year 2009. The first and foremost would probably be Black Saturday in Australia, which was one of the worst natural bushfires in Australia's history. Hundreds of people dead.
Almost 200.
Towns wiped off the face of the map. Natural disaster beyond belief. Horrible. Thanks, psychics, for warning us all. The tsunami that happened in Samoa. Thank you, psychics, for warning us all about that. Nathan Rees, the former premier who was just dumped the other day, and Malcolm Turnbull, the leader of the opposition federally, who was just dumped the other week. Hello? Psychics? No? All right.
No, all they said was Kevin Rudd would get into trouble. They didn't mention.
Wrong, yeah.
Although I have to say here that there was a prediction saying that a blonde woman in Australia will be moving up the ranks in politics, and we had to give them a point for that.
We did, yeah. Our new premier.
Of
Christina
New South Wales.
Keneally.
Yeah.
She's
And
blonde, isn't she?
sort of, yeah.
Externally.
But also Bronwyn Bishop has made a return to the front, the shadow.
Tenuous. Go on.
All right. Tenuous, I agree. Most Australians received $900 this year from the government as part of the stimulus package, including me.
I think that's a big deal that I would have liked to have been told about so I could plan my budget.
Yeah. Barack Obama wins the Nobel Peace Prize.
Nobody saw that coming.
Not
you would
even
expect the psychics would have seen that.
You would expect.
Yeah.
No psychics warned the poor people in the Jakarta hotel about the bombing, 8 dead. Or the various bombs in Baghdad, of course, that happen quite often.
121 dead just the other day.
Just the other day.
You think they would have picked that? Because that's a bit like the one here that said Pakistan will get rid of their extremists.
Yeah. You know, car bombs in Baghdad would be, you would expect something like that.
Well, at least they could tell them when and where. There's been a big influx of refugees heading for Australia this year. There was water found on the moon.
They didn't mention that.
No. Michael Jackson died.
Oh.
Which Rebecca Watson predicted.
Rebecca Watson predicted that last year on SGU. Yeah.
But nowhere in this psychic directory of Australia's top psychics did anyone predict that.
Simply not as psychic as Rebecca Watson.
No.
Major health reforms in the United States. A meteor over Indonesia, which exploded up in the atmosphere. That was quite something. The Chaser TV show here in Australia was taken off the air for a couple of weeks for outrageous comments. The Hey Hey It's Saturday show made a big comeback but caused huge controversy with their one of their routines with the people in black faces.
Black and white minstrels.
And last, Tiger Woods.
Oh, they didn't get that one.
Now, we probably missed some, you know.
I'm sure we did.
But I think what I wanted to say earlier was that you see, you're focusing on all these things, and they're all, okay, they're prominent and all that, but they're not nearly as important as being in touch with nature and watching the frogs and the bees.
Of course, what was I thinking?
Wasn't there one in here, Richard, about there will be tremors down the west coast of America?
There is one there somewhere, tremors on the west coast of America.
Have
which
you
is
ever
like,
heard of that happening before?
I think it's here.
No, that couldn't be true.
No, I know it was here somewhere.
It's here. It's there somewhere.
Do they predict that it will call the San Andreas Fault?
That's what we
think they did.
That's what we call in Australia. Duh.
I wish I could find it. It was hilarious last night when I was laughing at it. This is another really obvious one. A no-brainer. Obama will bring about the breakdown of a lot of America's old attitudes and rigid structures! ! He will be effective in bringing about massive changes globally and will be instrumental in helping Iraq to become an independent country. That's like the San Andreas fault line, isn't it? I mean, It's just embarrassing. But at the beginning of this article, they talk about the previous year's predictions and talk about the hits they got. So we're going to hang on to this, Richard. And at the beginning of 210, I want to see what they claim they got right compared to what we say they got right. I'd be interested to see what they say in the 2010 edition.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
That'll be out soon, actually.
It should be.
That'll be out soon.
So well done, psychics.
I predict.
You get the booby prize.
I predicted this at the beginning of the year that next week there'll be another Skeptic Zone.
Oh, did you predict that?
I did. And every week this year there has been a Skeptic Zone, which is...
That's okay, that's still a hit.
Yeah, see, I got it right.
Because next week hasn't happened yet.
It hasn't happened. I'd like to thank Dr. Rachael Dunlop for being with us tonight in the think tank. Thank you, Rachel.
Richard. I love this segment of the show. It's so much fun.
Thank you, Eran Segev.
Thank you, Richard.
It's great to hear from our friends and colleagues in Finland and the Netherlands. And until next time on the think tank, which might be a good few weeks away because we're having a little bit of a summer series coming up, or winter series if you're in North America. It's goodbye from the think tank.
Cheers, everyone.
Empty glasses.
This is Desiree Schell, host of Skeptically Speaking. Check out our website at skepticallyspeaking.com and listen to us live on CJSR 88.5 FM in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. I now return you to the Skeptic Zone.
Thank you for listening to the Skeptic Zone. Now, don't forget, everybody, we're busily getting ready for TAM Australia. I know it's almost a year away, but that year will go quick, I'm sure. And you can help us by helping the Skeptic's Guide to the Universe. All 5 of them are coming out for the TAM Australia, and I think they need your help. We need your help. Run over to the SGU website and find the donate button and help get them to Australia. Until next week, this is Richard Saunders signing off from Sydney, Australia.
You've been listening to The Skeptic Zone. Visit our website at www.skepticzone.tv for comments, contacts, and extra video reports.
The Skeptic